Hi, it's Winton Churchill with the Barefoot Consultants, and I'd like to welcome you to our Facebook Friday. Today, we're going to be talking about three habits that you can cultivate that help freelancers. A lot of good anecdotal reports to talk about this. These are some of the methods that I use myself when I get off track. I find that having the habits to go to are particularly helpful when you're running around, the world, which we're getting ready to get back to, and you're adjusting to changes in time zones and that kind of thing. I found it's really critical to have a set of habits that make sense, that you can kind of employ to get back on your regular schedule, and particularly as you're traveling, to be at peak performance. And so just to begin with this, one of the things that has been a real boon to my own productivity is using a thing called the Pomodoro Technique. And I'm going to share a screen here that shows the Pomodoro Technique, and then I'm going to put the Wikipedia reference into the chat so you can take a look at it for yourself. But it basically was developed by this professor here, Francis Cirillo, maybe, I guess, and it comes from the word tomato, I guess, in Italian, similar in Spanish. And he had a kitchen timer that he used for this technique. And it's very simple. There's lots of books that have been written on this, and there are more complex systems that you can use with the Pomodoro technique. But I find that sort of just getting back to the simple stuff is the best thing for me to do on this stuff. That's what I find is the most, the simpler it is to do, the more likely I am to do it. If it involves going through and prioritizing things and, assigning values and moving things around and rewriting your to-do list 2 or 3 times, those are the kind of things that don't work for me. Simplicity works for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this screen so you can see what I'm talking about, and he's going to go through a few of or the Wikipedia page will go through a few of the things that make sense. So we're going to go to share screen, and then we're going to go to a Chrome tab. There we go. Pomodoro Technique. And what we're going to do then is I have to go back over here, and I'll put this link into the chat window. 1 second here. There we go. Pomodoro Technique. There we go. Excellent. And good to see you, Greg, there. Yes, this is the morning of or noon Central Time, May 7th. So we're in our deal here. So let's take a look at this Pomodoro Technique. Very simple. You set the timer traditionally for 25 minutes. Some people vary that time, but this is the period of time that you are going to work exclusively on a single task, and you're not going to answer your phone. You're not going to look at your email. You're not going to get up from your chair and walk around. That's it. But when the alarm goes off, you take a 5-minute break, and that's when you go get a drink of water or walk around, or I actually have a little trampoline here, one of those exercise trampolines that I jump on to kind of get the blood circulating and that kind of thing, because I spend probably at least a good 6 hours a day anyway sitting here, and working on things and doing trainings and that kind of thing. So 25 minutes, you concentrate on one thing, you will be amazed at how much stuff you get done in that 25 minutes. The idea is then you pause for a break. Uh, just again, to keep it simple, I take a 5-minute break. Sometimes I walk around outside for a few minutes. Sometimes I go get a drink from the refrigerator, different things. But the idea is just to kind of change your mindset. And one of the things that I found helpful, if you work at a computer every day, all day, your eyes are focused about 1.5 feet in front of you all day long, which apparently is kind of rough on your eyes. So when I take my Pomodoro breaks, I make sure I go out and I'm looking at something that's distant, and this is sort of relaxes those muscles. So when you're looking at the computer screen, it's like holding something up, and it's not that hard, but if you do it for 25 minutes, you start to get fatigue in your arm and all that kind of stuff. Well, this focusing at different distances, sort of going back to focusing far away as you can see on the horizon. There's a water tower outside my balcony here that's I think it's about 3 or 4 miles away, and I can see that. So I focus on that, and then I focus on the house across the street, and then kind of do that and that helps relax those eye muscles. And then you go back and you do the next Pomodoro for another 25 minutes. And the idea is after you do 4 of those, that you take a 30-minute break or a lunch break. And as you're starting to do this and cultivate the habit, it's very important to realize that it is difficult to get to 4 Pomodoros a day, to get to 4 concentration sessions. I think it took me about a month to get to that, just because we're all tuned into our email and the phone rings and chats come in and all that kind of stuff. You just get a lot of interruptions, and it takes time to develop the comfort level, number one, and the confidence that the world won't fall apart when you devote yourself for a pure 25 minutes to a topic. And some days I do 1 Pomodoro, and I'm very thankful for the ability to do 1. And then some days I do several of them, so that's great. And on the days I'm pretty good at getting about 3 Pomodoros in a day. That's what they call them. So that's 3 times 25 minutes. So that's about 75 minutes a day of pure, focused, concentrated thought on one topic, and not being distracted by the phone or anything else like that. So thank you for that nice comment, Greg. Very nice. And so that's the first thing. And when I talk to people about how do I get on a routine, they say, I've started freelancing, I'm doing pretty good, but I'm having trouble putting my schedule together and making sure I make the most out of my day. And this is one of the ways to make the most out of your day, particularly as most of the people that are doing freelancing in our program, they're doing it as a part-time activity, not as a full-time activity. And man, getting 1 or 2 Pomodoros in on your freelancing effort, you'll see big gains. There's lots and lots of inefficiency going from one task to another outside. And there was a book written a number of years ago, can't remember the name, but it talked about that when you are working and you have an interruption that takes you out of that, like a lot of times I'm writing an article or I'm writing a script for some training, video training that we're going to record, that we're going to do something with, and you get so much done when you focus on those 25-minute blocks. So encourage you to get started and take a good look at the Pomodoro technique. there. Now, the next thing is kind of funny because there's a little bit of a cart before the horse here, and this is called a morning routine. And as a morning routine is when you kind of have a series of set things that you're going to do. And there are a number of books recently that have come out about that. There's several very popular ones, but I'm going to let me just get that off the screen. There we go. Gotta get the screen off, and then we're going to get the screen on. Here we go. So this is the little bit about morning routines, and I'm going to give you a little secret. Is morning routines are hard to implement. Usually the people I talk to say, I'm trying to figure out how to get more done. I'm looking at productivity things. And so they stumble on this morning routine because it actually is very effective. It's completely worthwhile thing to do. But the way they start on it is they say, well, if they're used to getting up at 7:30 every morning, tomorrow morning I'm going to get up at 5. And you can kind of set your alarm and you can force yourself to do it. But what I've found as I'm older, there was a time, when I traveled a lot in my career, and I would be across 3 or 4 time zones in a day, and then another 2 or 3, and that kind of thing. So lots of adjusting to time zones, and that's the worst scenario. Haven't had to do much of that for the last year, courtesy of the lockdowns and the travel restrictions. But even if you're sitting at home, this whole idea of getting stuff done early in the morning and starting it with a morning routine is very desirable. And I found for me that these habits kind of ebb and flow, and that's an interesting dynamic. It's very hard for us as human beings to do the same thing all the time, every day. In fact, our bodies weren't really designed for that. Our bodies and our minds were more designed to handle a wide variety of tasks and circumstances. So when we get too locked in to a routine, then your body occasionally throws something in there to kind of change it up, one way or the other. But this this is an article from Tracy Kennedy, and it's on a site called Lifehack, and I'll drop that in the chat window there. 1 second, because you're going to want to read the detail on this. It is such a good article, and she kind of summarized the advice. I mean, there's lots of people out here talking about the same thing, but these are just some of the highlights. And for me, the benefit is, we all have lots of little things to do in our day, and just starting the day from a point of feeling like you're, what you're going to do, you're relaxed, you're looking for positive outcomes. You have a relatively short list, maybe 2 or 3 items that you're going to complete or make significant progress on. And then you kind of have marshaled up all the little, call this person, do that thing, send this email, that kind of thing. All those little 2 or 3 minute activities are all batched into maybe a half hour of the day, that sort of thing. But and that's where this phrase, it grounds you. That's what it does for me. And certainly if you know what you're going to do, it reduces your stress level. A lot of people, freelancers included, get up and they hit their email first thing in the morning, and there's nothing that quite keeps you off balance as much as trying to do your email, because you get little tiny things and you get really big things and everything in between. So this is sort of a way of start the day off on the right foot, where you're in control and the day doesn't control you. And certainly there are days where I feel like that happens, and it's usually there's my buddy Kellen Flukiger talks about the how let's see, he has a phrase for it. It's unplanned mayhem, I think is his phrase for that. And for me, yesterday I got an email that a video that we thought that was in one of our training programs that's been working fine, all of a sudden now it's corrupted. So we have to go back to the original recording of that and take that original recording and point it up or post it up on the webpage. So those are the kind of things that unplanned mayhem. Those are the things that come up. It could be a family member. It could be something you're working on. Your freelance client gets the draft of the article you've written for them, and they've got some changes they want to talk about right away, and that kind of thing. So there's some things that come up that you have to do there. But this goes through how to create your ideal morning routine. And the thought is that you look at these 4 systems: the mental, spiritual, emotional, physical. So for me, some of these categories kind of blend together at times. But what I do is I get up and I meditate for about 15 minutes every morning. And that's what I start with. And I do my best to think about nothing. And, that's for me the best sort of meditation that works for me, because usually after I do that, I have a notepad sitting right next to me, so that when I stop the meditation and you think about nothing for 15 minutes, what will usually flood back are some insights or thoughts, and I want to capture those in writing. And it could be something as simple as saying, start on this task first today, or it might be a task that I'd forgotten about that I remember just as I come out of that. So that's a great meditation. And then I do some other writing, and then I usually end my morning time with some exercise. And it's not intense exercise, but it's just kind of loosening up and getting the blood flowing and that kind of thing. So that would be a way to do that. So just go out there and Google morning routine and find an article or a guru or somebody that makes sense to you. But I made the mistake of trying to put together a morning routine until I had the other component of this, which is the nighttime routine. Because what I learned is you can't create a good morning routine until you have a good evening routine. Because you can want to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock or whatever it is, but you can't really do that unless you set yourself up for that. And so there's a couple things that I learned about that along the way. Let me just get this off here for a little bit. Is that you have to have a good nighttime routine. And your nighttime routine is what really creates a that sets you up to have a good morning routine. Because if you're waking up by the alarm clock and you're getting up, let's say you normally would get up at 7 and now all of a sudden you're getting up 2 hours earlier than you normally do, that's hard. That's hard on your body. That's a big behaviorally. So when people are doing this, they want to get to a morning routine. I suggest that the way they adjust is they start getting up 15 minutes earlier and do that for 3 or 4 days. And if they're feeling like they can go to the next step, then they get up another 15 minutes earlier. So if your normal get up time is 7 a.m., then within a week or two, your normal get up time is now 6:30, and 6:30 is you got an extra half hour to do your morning routine, and then you continue that to the point of comfort. And at different times in my career, I've tried getting up as early as 3:30 in the morning, uh, but I found that I don't like that because I think that just messes up your schedules too much. 5 or 5:30 tends to work just fine, and particularly for us as we age, we also come up with, um, we tend to not need as much sleep, and not sleep quite as much as we may have, uh, when we were younger. So that is you can look at it a couple of ways. It could be a frustration, but it could be a bonus as well. I just don't seem to need as much sleep as I once did. So that would be a thing to consider. And so the night routine is the same way. If you go to bed every night at midnight, you can't all of a sudden go to bed at 9:30 one night because your body's going to be wide awake. It can't adjust that fast. So here again, the idea is, and I found it's a little bit easier to go to sleep a half hour earlier, for example, and then another half hour early. And so you can move it a little bit more than you can move the getting up part. You can make faster progress. And Greg is saying, let's see here, that he got up. He was in bed at 8 p.m. and up at 4 a.m. And sometimes in the summer when I'm in Huatulco, a schedule kind of like that works for me as well. I really like that. If you really tune into the sundown and that kind of thing, there's all these triggers around you that help you start to feel sleepy, and that works very well. And for some reason, as Greg is saying, it's the different environment when you're in Canada. The cues that have triggered our ancestors' bodies for hundreds of thousands of years to go to sleep are the sun going down. Very powerful. And the whole idea of a lot of light at night just came along in the last 100 years or 1,000 years, if you include candles and that kind of thing. But actually getting to bed a half hour earlier is a good thing. Another important part of this, and let me just share this screen. I think we're I got to press another button to get us back on the screen here. Here we go. Is that the right one? No, that's not the right one. We're going to stop the screen, and then we're going to share it again. Share this one. So this is the ultimate nighttime routine, and I'll put this link in the chat window as well in just a moment. And what I have found, some of the stuff that resonates with me now is in this minimalist focus. The word minimalist, that's actually a thing. People adopt a minimalist philosophy. It basically, for me, my interpretation of it means that you just are simplifying things. And certainly, there was a time where I loved having a house and a 2-car garage and a pool and a garden area and that kind of stuff, because enjoyed keeping all that stuff going. And now I'm more interested in being in a condo or an apartment and having a place that somebody else mostly takes care of and gives me the freedom to travel. So that would be kind of, in some ways, a minimalist direction. And particularly for me, because 14 years ago I moved out of the country, out of the United States to Mexico, and just because of the distances involved and what makes sense, there's just a whole lot of your life changes pretty substantially. And I went from living in a house for many decades to now all of a sudden living in an apartment, which was very much a different experience. So, but here's some interesting tips on the nighttime habits. And one that I find helpful is just earlier in the evening, check your to-do list and create a new one for the next day. You know, what I have, I call it a chattering monkey that goes off in my head that says, oh, don't forget to do this, don't forget to do that, don't forget to do this other thing. And that's one of those things that really wakes you up or keeps you awake. And if you write everything down that you need to do, you know that every once in a while you'll have a thought pop into your head, oh, I need to do this. And I keep a notepad by my bed, so if one of those thoughts pops in, I can write it down. But for the most part, when I go to bed, I pretty much know what I'm going to do the next day and know what things I need to concentrate on. And I make sure I do that at least an hour before I go to bed, because you don't want to think about all the conversations you need to have and all the things you need to do. Some of them are easy, some of them are difficult, and it just can create a state of anxiety just before you go to bed. So you want to make sure that you allow yourself time to time to lapse so that you can sort of get all that anxiety out of your system. Um, Now, this is another interesting one. My clothes are pretty simple. Thankfully, when I'm in Huatulco at the beach, it's sandals and shorts and either a t-shirt or one of my kind of flowery shirts. And so that's pretty easy, um, to do. And, it's never been a big complication for me, but I certainly know some people that really spend a lot of time thinking about what they're going to wear, and best to have that ready to go rather than to use your brain power first thing in the morning to meditate or reflect or whatever it might be. If your first job of the day becomes deciding, should I wear this or should I wear that, you get all this garbage chatter in your brain about that. And so very much support that, but not something that these days is something I worry about too much. The other thing is just tidying up everything. And I go through periods of where I've tidied it up and I haven't. And it's interesting now in the lockdown, I was on a business trip to Texas, and that was over a year ago now. I'm still in Texas. And one of the great things about living in Mexico is I have a pretty much full-time housekeeper that takes care of the cleaning and the kitchen and all that kind of stuff. And for the last year, I've had to do all of that. I have a much, I would say, a deepened respect for those activities now. And this idea of making sure things are tidied up before you go to bed is good. And I would have read this, a little more than a year ago, and I would have said, I've got the housekeeper coming in the morning. I'm not going to go around and do all that stuff. It would take me too much time. It's 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. Well, now that I've been living completely by myself with no outside housekeeping or anything like that, all these cleaning and tidying activities have fallen on me. And I found that I've fallen into this, is that I'm kind of at a point where if I spend 10 or 15 minutes at the end of the day just putting the dishes in the dishwasher and tidying up in the living room and that kind of thing, that it's very easy to do, and it's so nice not to wake up again, just like with your clothes, thinking, oh, I got to go change my clothes, I got to go do this, I got to go do that. It's great. And you walk into the living room where I meditate, or the kitchen where I have a countertop that I sit at and write separate and apart from my desk. And it's just much easier when everything is neat and tidy. You don't say, oh, I got to pick that up, I got to put this over there, I got to take this back to the closet, whatever it might be. So it really is all about preventing clutter from taking over. Dress comfortably. I'm happy to say that I have this nailed down wonderfully. Um, it's 15 years of living in Mexico has helped me figure that out, especially when you're dealing in uh, extreme temperature ranges. There's days in Huatulco that are very hot and humid, so you're dressing minimally. And then what I found there is that in order to work, I had to have the air conditioning on. I just doesn't even make sense to try to work on a hot, humid day without the air conditioning running. So something to think about. And then conversely, if I'm up in San Miguel or traveling like I was 2 years ago in Europe, and also uh, down in Australia, that some days are cooler than others. And if I'm not dressed for the weather, I'm going to be cold all day. So important to do this. Now, the hard one is for many is ditching alcohol and excess food. And I've never been much of uh, a drinker, but I can be a snacker. And so my goal is to, if I quit eating by about 7:30 or 8 in the evening and don't eat anything before I go to bed, I get a much better night's sleep. So this whole idea of enhancing your recovery is an important concept there for your evening uh, uh, wind down period. And this, at least for me, really, I studied a little bit about this. And what happens is, when you eat, that's when your body does the hard work of digestion. The eating is kind of the easy part, the digestion is the harder part. And if you can give yourself 2 or 3 hours after you last consume food for your body to go through that digestion phase, the heavy lifting of digestion is over, and you get uh, a much deeper sleep. I've found personally. So uh, very important. And then the other thing that I've learned is that if I do have a glass of wine or something along those lines, the um, letting some amount of time elapse before you have that and before you go to bed is also good. It's kind of a false uh, truism that if it's easier to go to sleep if you drink alcohol. It helps, settle you or relax you or whatever. And it truly does that. And it may be easier to fall asleep, but the things that alcohol does to you during the evening, make your sleep less productive. And so that's what I've found in my case. And so part of the routine, a lot of people do this, clean your face and brush your uh, teeth, and I'm one that I'm not interested in showering in the evening. I'm more of a shower in the morning kind of person. But understanding what these preferences are, until I started putting together my ultimate routine for night, I really hadn't thought about it, and I've had all these decades to think about it, but it never really crossed my mind. And but started thinking about the preferences and what made sense. Uh, and then the other thing that kind of gets into what I would call the woo-woo phase is this idea of expressing gratitude to yourself and the other people you love, family members, that kind of thing. You could do it in a journal. You could just have a mental list that you go through. One of the things that I find is a great way to remind myself of people I care about, family members, that sort of thing, is I have a folder on my iPhone, and I just open it up and it's got pictures, hundreds of pictures, and I just spend a little time going through that and thinking about when I took the picture and what we were doing and what we were enjoying and that sort of thing, and generally wind up with positive feelings as I get ready to go to bed. I have found that for me, reading something engages my mind too much. If I read something, I get a little bit, I'm trying to follow the thread and I'm trying to make sense out of it. But if I'm just looking at photographs, that's easy and really puts me in a state to do that. So lots of other little wrinkles that people can put into their routine. This woman suggests read between 20 and 60 minutes, and that absolutely does not work for me. I get too interested. I start thinking about, wow, is that is that a concept we could use in our training? Or I don't agree with that, or what have you. So I just stay away from the reading later at night. And then, of course, the important thing, for the most part, you want to put your electronic devices away about an hour before you go to bed. It just, significantly, for me, lowers my stress level. It's not that I won't take a quick glance at my phone to see a text or something like that, but just the idea of being on it all the time, a phone or a tablet or that kind of thing. It's just the less electronic devices you have in the hour before you go to bed, the better. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect. If in the hour before you go to bed, you look at your phone or tablet for 5 minutes, that's a lot better than looking at it for 60 minutes. So, with all these suggestions, just take your time. And then, finally, once the lights are off, take a step back, clear your mind. There's a conscious shift. When I first heard this advice, I thought, clear your mind. How do you do that? It's easy when you lay down to think about, oh, I got to do this tomorrow, I got to do that tomorrow, and all these other things help with that. But you can actually tell your mind to go in a thinking direction or a non-thinking direction at this point, and it's like a muscle. And most days my mind muscle wins that battle, in that I'm able to just say, I can think about that in the morning and go and do that. So let's get back over here to the questions. There we go. All righty. And so happy to answer any questions you might have around freelancing. And Greg is mentioning that colder is better for sleeping. Yes, I find that particularly in Texas. I'm not used to the heat fluctuations and the cold fluctuations here, but I find that I sleep better if I'm in about 60 degrees, 68 degrees, something like that. And the weather in Texas right now, we're having 54-degree nights and 75 to 85 degree days. So when you go to bed, it might be a little toasty, and when you wake up, it might be a little chilly. So you want to adjust your cooling and heating systems accordingly. And yes, as Greg emphasizes, you want to make a to-do list before you lie down. Usually you want to end that process about an hour before you lie down, so all those things aren't swirling around in your head. So for those of you that are listening to this on the replay, you can go ahead and put your any questions you might have into the chat window, and we'll look at those during the week and answer those. And for those of you in our program, our freelance program, you'll see we'll see you on Tuesday evening for our freelance call, and look forward to see you here next Friday. So have a great week freelancing. Be sure and leave a like on your way out, and that helps us share these thoughts around the web, helps make for more productive baby boomer freelancers. And who knows, your thumbs up might be the difference between somebody getting a better night's sleep and not. So be sure and hit the like button there. Take care, and we'll see you next week.